I met Mariana in mid-2022 at the harbor market. Not a flashy meet cute. Just the two of us reaching for the same jar of homemade chili jam at a weekend stall. The town was the kind where everyone worked and played in the same places. The cafe where I did occasional barista shifts, the volunteer crew that rebuilt the storm-battered pier, the Sunday book swap on the wharf. We clicked right away, walked the same shoreline, and it didn't take long before we were dating. Early on, she ended things over a petty spat. This time, instead of a workplace scene, it happened in front of a small crowd at an outdoor poetry night where she loudly accused me of being insensitive. I was humiliated, not only because she'd made a scene, but because it was where our town's close-knit social life lived. For a while I stayed, forcing myself to keep helping at the pier and brewing coffee at the cafe. But every corner reminded me of that night, and seeing her every day became unbearable. Eventually, I took another job 2 towns over and left the pier behind so I wouldn't run into her constantly. Over the next few months, we bumped into each other now and then at the ferry, at the farmer's market, and started talking again. Despite the hurt, something in me still hoped. One evening, she came to the little community theater where I'd begun volunteering, tearful and apologetic, saying she hated how she'd ended things in public and had been thinking about it ever since. Her remorse felt real. So I asked if she'd try again. She did, and by early 2023, we were back together, quieter this time, patching things slowly. By mid-2024, we'd begun talking seriously about the future. A small cottage by the dunes, maybe a wedding in the harbor garden. I wanted it to be a surprise. I began doing extra shifts, saving every spare hour's tips, and taking odd jobs, rehanging nets and fixing boats, so I could afford a down payment. I told no one. Then, out of the blue, Mariana asked for a break. She wouldn't explain. Around the same time, she started mentioning a new man who worked at the Coastal Conservation Office. For weeks, she couldn't stop talking about him. Then suddenly stopped, which made me uneasy. I confided in Lena, not her real name, a friend who still lived and worked in our original town and stayed in the same community circles as Mariana. Lena didn't know everything at first, but when she checked around, she told me Mariana had seemed distant lately, especially while I was pulling extra shifts and disappearing to work on the cottage plans. A few of Mariana's friends had been whispering that I wasn't present enough, that I'd become wrapped up in work. They'd started nudging her toward the conservation guy, saying it looked like a better match. I told Lena the truth. I'd been saving for a ring and a house, that the long hours were for us. Lena listened, then, weeks later, sheepish, told me she'd blurted out my surprise plans to Mariana. Mariana had collapsed in tears after hearing them. It felt like betrayal, even though Lena meant well. We met to talk after a couple of weeks apart. I asked for clarity about the break. Mariana said she'd felt lonely, that my late nights made her think I wasn't invested. I told her if she'd asked, I would have explained, but that I wasn't willing to be made to feel small in public or chase someone who might already be looking out the door. When she finally mentioned the conservation guy, I cut her off and said I'd had enough. I told her I was ending the relationship. The hurt was too fresh. I packed my life into a van and moved to a different coastal town, using the money I'd saved for the house to create distance and a new start. Back in my hometown for Christmas, we were all at a friend's small New Year's gathering. I hardly spoke to Mariana the whole night, just a nod as she passed. Later, One of our mutual friends said the conservation office fling had lasted only a few months. That should have eased something in me. But when a mutual friend later asked me to give Mariana a lift to our town because she was moving to be near a relative's business, I said no without thinking. The idea of being stuck in a car with her felt impossible. A few weeks later, I went for an easy run and slowed near the park to catch my breath. Mariana was there, breezy, trying to start conversation. She asked how I was and reminded me we never really talked at the holiday party. I told her I didn't want to talk. She pleaded that communication was exactly what we needed. I felt only rawness and walked away. She tried twice more, and I turned her down both times. Some friends thought I was too hardline and urged me to talk for closure. Others said I shouldn't string her along. The truth is I didn't hate her. If anything, I felt ashamed at how I'd missed opportunities to explain myself, and I still blamed myself for not making space to show why I'd been working so much. But every conversation felt like reopening a wound I'd barely begun to scab over. So I cut contact and blocked her on every platform after the second break. For a while things calmed. A few shared acquaintances grew weary of Mariana's repeated attempts to reach me and stopped facilitating them. Lena posted vaguely about people who wouldn't stop following others online. She didn't name Mariana, but enough people connected the dots. Then things quieted. Mariana stopped showing up in our mutual circles, and everyone stopped bringing her up. Then, in February 2025, Mariana's mother called me. They'd always been kind, gentle, ordinary people who'd treated me with warmth. Her mother apologized for Mariana's behavior and asked if I would take a call. I almost refused, but I owed them. I called. They put both parents on speaker and apologized. Her father said the way Mariana behaved was more adolescent than someone her age, and that they'd spoken with her at length. They'd urged her to seek help and to respect my wishes. I felt relief, not only for myself, but for Mariana. If she would step back and get help, maybe she'd find the peace she needed. I told them I respected them and that I hoped the same for their daughter. After that call, I felt something close to finality. For me, that chapter was closed. I'm 34 now. I've learned to be more cautious with the word friend, to protect my plans from well-meaning gossip, and to give myself time to heal. Maybe I'll talk to a therapist someday, but for the moment I'm letting the sea and small-town rhythms help stitch me back together. I spent the last hour trying to figure out how to explain what happened next. The meeting with Miss Anderson revealed something I hadn't expected, and everything that followed left me staring at choices I never thought I'd face. I arrived at Riverside High early, sitting in my car while streams of students hurried inside. A few of Stella's classmates spotted me. Their quick glances and hushed voices told me rumors about my absence had already made the rounds. By the time I stepped into Miss Anderson's office, I felt the ground shifting beneath me. She submitted paperwork to withdraw from her advanced placement classes yesterday, Miss Anderson said, sliding a form across the desk. She's also dropped French club and student council. When I asked why, she said she's transferring schools next semester. My chest tightened. Stella had fought to earn her spot in those programs, the same extracurriculars she'd counted on to strengthen her Stanford application. There's more. Miss Anderson adjusted her glasses. She requested transcripts sent to 3 schools in California. She hesitated. The same city where Miles recently bought property. The puzzle pieces slammed together in my head. I pulled out my phone and showed her the text Miles had blasted to the family chat. Great news, big announcement at dinner tomorrow night. Let me guess, I muttered. He's starting another business. Miss Anderson nodded. She mentioned something about a tech startup and that her father needs family investors. The nausea hit like it had 3 years ago, when Miles convinced Delilah to hand him money for his so-called guaranteed venture. We never saw a cent of it again. I left the school and drove straight to the house. Delilah's car was in the driveway. Through the window, I saw her pacing the kitchen with her phone pressed to her ear. The moment she noticed me, she rushed to the door. He asked her for money, she said before I even spoke. Her college fund. He's been filling her head with promises that if she invests now, she'll earn enough to pay for any college she wants. Where is she? I asked. Coffee with Miles again. Delilah's voice cracked. I told her it was a scam, but she accused me of being jealous that he's finally showing up. She said at least he believes in her dreams. I sank into a chair at the kitchen counter, the very place where everything had collapsed a week ago. Why didn't you tell me he was back? I thought I could handle it myself, Delilah whispered, wringing her hands. And then you and Stella fought, she said those awful things, and I panicked. I sided with her, because I was terrified she'd cut me off completely if I didn't. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Stella stepped inside. She froze when she saw me. Her makeup was carefully done, her jacket brand new, likely a gift from Miles, but her eyes were rimmed red. "What are you doing here?" she asked, though her voice lacked the usual edge. "Are you really dropping your AP courses?" I asked softly. "What happened to Stanford?" "Plans change," she mumbled, avoiding my eyes. "Dad says." "Miles says," I interrupted gently. Her face flickered. "He has connections out there. The startup is guaranteed. Too good to miss." Guaranteed. I opened my laptop and slid it across the counter. Like the classic car dealership or the food truck franchise. Her brow furrowed. "I did some digging," I continued. "Do you want to know Miles's current company registration status? His credit report? Or maybe the 3 lawsuits he's facing from his last guaranteed investment?" Stella's lips parted, but no words came out. For the first time in weeks, I saw doubt in her eyes. Stella's hands trembled as she scrolled through the documents on my laptop. Each click stripped away another layer of Miles's carefully crafted mask. When she reached the lawsuit filed by his former stepdaughter's grandmother, demanding repayment of the very college fund he had stolen, the tears came. "He said he'd changed," she whispered. "That he wanted to make up for lost time. That we could finally be a real family if I proved I chose him, and not you." Her voice cracked. Delilah stepped forward, but Stella flinched back, shaking her head. "I think I knew all along. I just wanted so badly to believe him." Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Miles. She stared at it for a long moment, then powered it off and shoved it aside. "I need to think," she muttered before rushing upstairs. Hours later, my phone lit up. "I messed up. Everything's messed up. Can we talk? Not about Miles. Just us. Like when we used to get ice cream after my dance classes." Minutes later, I was parked outside our favorite shop. It was long past closing, but the owner had kept the lights on for us, a kindness born of 3 years of shared memories. Stella sat in her mom's car gathering courage. Finally, we walked in together. Over melting bowls of mint chocolate chip, Stella poured out her fears, her guilt, her exhaustion. Then she said something that stopped me cold. Miles had asked her to recruit her friends' parents as investors. The pattern clicked. Lawsuits I'd uncovered, stories of other families, his history of ventures. He wasn't just manipulating her. He was building his scams through kids, using them as bridges to parents' wallets. Stella, I said carefully, what he's doing isn't just wrong. It's illegal. Securities fraud. Investment solicitation without a license. Her eyes widened. She pulled up her phone and showed me group chats, messages from Miles, directly asking teenagers to convince their parents to hand him money. That was all I needed. Calls went out that night. Quinn's friend at the SEC, Ryan's contact at the DA's office. By morning, there was a plan. Miles strutted into the big announcement dinner at an upscale restaurant, ready to unveil his latest scheme. Stella sat stiff beside Delilah, the education fund papers in her purse. I let him bask in his pitch until the appetizers arrived. Before we continue, I said, rising, there are a few more people who should be here. 2 federal agents and a state investigator stepped into the room. Miles froze. His charm drained from his face. In seconds, his empire of lies collapsed. The agents laid out the evidence. 7 fraudulent ventures across 3 states, millions stolen. He had documented everything in text to Stella, never imagining she'd turn on him. The parents he'd invited? They wore wires. Every false promise, every illegal pitch, recorded. Miles tried to bolt, shoving past a waiter, but security had him down before he reached the door. As the handcuffs snapped shut, he shot Stella his well-practiced, pleading look. Sweetheart, this is all a misunderstanding. Tell them I'm your father. For the first time, she didn't waver. Stella stood tall, slid her hand into mine, and said clearly, my father's right here. And you're finally getting what you deserve. The fallout was swift. Headlines, victim statements, new families coming forward. Investigators tied him to $2.3 million in stolen funds. His so-called startup was nothing more than a stock photo website. He's facing 15 to 20 years. But the real victory wasn't the arrest. It came quietly. Stella boxed up every photo of Miles and handed them to the prosecution as evidence. Then she carefully returned my pictures to the family albums, smoothing each one as though rebuilding our history piece by piece. She re-enrolled in her AP classes. Her friends' parents formed a support group, and she started drafting college essays. I've got a pretty unique story now, she said with a wry smile. Delilah and I began counseling. Trust takes time. But one evening I found her straightening a frame, a photo of the 3 of us on the balcony during lockdown, and that said more than any words could. This morning, Stella brought me an envelope. Miles asked me to mail this last week, she explained. Inside were the fraudulent investment papers. I figured we could take it to the investigators together, and maybe get ice cream after. Some say vengeance went too far. But family isn't about blind loyalty. It's about protection, even from those who share your blood. Miles will have years in a cell to think about that. As for us, tonight, it's just the 3 of us eating Stella's pasta sauce at the kitchen table. Ordinary, peaceful, beautiful, and that, after everything, is the sweetest justice of all.